The ancestors are wandering the cosmos, singing, not really singing, but intoning. The sound is their spiritual energy. They have achieved a purely spiritual state, and they're living the meaning. They're living the meaning of the universe rather than thinking about it and acting on it and analyzing it and summarizing it, and etc., etc. Every day, at the beginning of the day, Sumo leads his sisters in a ritual in which they mummy wrap themselves the way they mummy wrap a god when the god dies. They wrap them in these red strips, and just like you would wrap a mummy, and of course they have to wrap their heads so that like the dead ancestors who are ritually wrapped are wrapped so that they are completely shut off from, their senses are shut out from, there's no possibility of any light hitting their eyes and through their eyes their brain, which can bring them back into the material world. They are assisted in turning away completely from the material world because there's gods and there's always a spark of life in a dead god, which is why the ancestors are transformed. And as you see in the beginning scene, the ancestors wander the cosmos, which with what is left of their life source, their energy. So the siblings, ritualistically, all of them, wrap themselves, and the arbiter, the middle sibling, there's 3 sets of 3 gong sounds. And that's a punctuation of the wrapping, and the wrapping is an acknowledgement of their ancestors, And of course they're doing this to start the day, and it's still dark. It's still dark because once they ritualistically unwrap themselves, that is a signal for the universe to come back to life and the blue sky to appear. And Sumo, the brother, leads his sisters, who are intoning in a way that's similar to the ancestors. And as he does this, and the deeper he goes to the firmament, they're not on the ground, they're up in the sky, they live on the clouds. The deeper he goes and reaches into the firmament, which we can't see because we still see outer space and night sky, the blue sky gradually comes up like one curtain that's being raised to push away the night curtain, the stars and the darkness and the nebulae and all those fantastic things. And it's like he's recreating a sort of Big Bang every morning in which the light and the life come and push out the nothingness, push out the darkness. And they begin every day like this. And so once that's done, the siblings all pray, and they pray intoning the chant of the ancestors. And the chant is punctuated. This means it's the end of the ceremony, the day raising ceremony. And the siblings go to their the places of their regular beginning of day habits, their individual habits. And Suma, the younger sister, gathers, it's her job to gather the sacred strips and return those to a sacred place. And then Suma will go down to earth. That's the next thing she does every day. Go down to earth to make sure that life is proceeding okay, and nature is in balance. And she's increasingly been observing the humans who she thinks have become too smart. And it's harder and harder and harder for her to get the humans to cooperate with her. So the next part of the movie is Suma on Earth, and transitioning from this, I will show Sumo in his meditative state, and Sumi, just cutaways to Sumi in the library arranging her librarian things and the artifacts and documents left by the ancestors that she studies and continues to try to figure out the ones that she is unable to read, because it's very ancient. It's a very ancient world. It's a very ancient culture. And so she studies all the time to try to benefit their culture and make sure that the memory of the ancestors and the legacy of the one continues to be nurtured and taken care of and maintained. But Suma, the younger sister, the enforcer, Suma the enforcer, goes down to Earth for second thing every day. And the humans in the movie are animated, and they're incomprehensible. It is a silent movie, and so I recorded some random dialogue at different pitches to create a sort of ambient wall or backdrop, a sound backdrop of them frenetically communicating with each other. And I think of them sort of like ants. They congregate together. They have some consciousness, but mostly they just sort of huddle together, and one of them doesn't make a decision without the other. And I'm moving like this because that's what the humans do, and they sort of follow each other around, but they have figured out how to communicate. And they have started forming a language. And this is the first time, this day, it's the inciting incident of the movie, when Suma, who's flying above the firmament, Suma is flying above the firmament, and of course she has super even more eagle than an eagle eyes. This particular day, the day the story begins, Suma hears this sound coming from the earth. And you haven't heard the gods speak. They don't speak. None of them, they have no need to speak. They understand each other. They have foolproof ways of communicating with each other. And she hears this sound, and she hears individual voices. And she senses, probably with the help of her divining rod, she senses that this is the humans. And since they've been giving her trouble anyway, the humans are somewhere they're developing and evolving and giving her more and more trouble all the time, somewhere around Olduvai Gorge, probably where Mama Lucy was found. They're trying to define themselves. They're trying to, the one created the humans, and they were just like all the other animals, but the one created the humans he gave them certain attributes that the gods have, where they were conscious, they were sentient, and that was the reason why the one did this, was so that they could enjoy the world, that they could enjoy the wonderful gift of life. It was not so that they could be as smart as the gods, or so that they can make plans, or so that they could do any sort of creating themselves. But that's what they're starting to do. Ma comes down, and she's already angry because that's sort of her nature. She just knows that they're going to defy her when she confronts them about language, and that's exactly what happens. And she threatens them, and she tells them that what they're doing is against God's law, and that they just can't do this. It's not allowed. And the humans have gotten so sophisticated that they have an escape plan, a way to avoid her. I mean, just get away from her. So, because they're not going to go back. Once you have a little bit of knowledge, you have a little bit of power, and you want more. So they escape, and she is absolutely furious because she feels that they not only have broken the law, they not only have defied her, but they have done it to her face, not just behind her back, and they have disrespected her, and she feels that in developing a language that the gods can't even understand. She can't understand what they're saying. She only knows what they're thinking. By the way that they are behaving towards her, and she shoots back up to the firmament and goes to complain to her brother and sister, because she thinks it's come to the point that the humans should be exterminated. They're putting nature all out of balance. They're breaking the laws that were handed down by the ancestors, and this just can't be. So, meanwhile, back on the firmament, Sumo has spent more and more time meditating and trying to reach the same state of connection with the universe that the ancestors have, that the dead have. He's feeling sort of disappointed. He's feeling like there's something missing. He believes that the more he puts into, the more earnestness he has, the more sincerity he has, the deeper he tries to go, that the closer he will get, and it's just not happening. And so here he sits, meditating waiting for, it's like he already has enlightenment, and that's not enough for him. Inside his head, his cells, his brain cells, his whole being really has begun to sing like the ancestors. So at least he has that, and it sort of keeps him pacified and patient, even though he's really not getting what he wants out of being. While Suma is contemplating the assassination of the humans, Sumi is saying her prayers and studying in the library, and she's just finished her prayers. And she senses that something is wrong, that something has gone horribly wrong. She has no idea what it is that she does more intensely, what she does most of the time anyway, which is to study the old texts, and they're the key to all their texts. Their Rosetta Stone is this necklace which has all these symbols on it, and it's almost as if each generation of ancestors developed their own, I mean, they don't speak, but they do have writing, and they develop their own code. And she looks inside this document that was created by some previous ancestor, one of her predecessors, an archivist, arbitrator, librarian, priestess. She wears a lot of hats. And so she's trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And at a certain point, we realize that she's figured out what it is. She's about to hit the gong to call her siblings to meet, and she stops herself because it's just such a horrible thing that she's not sure that's the best choice. And in her role as the judicious one, member of this Trinity, she decides to wait and see, because she's translated the vibration. She doesn't know for sure that this bad thing has happened, and if necessary, she will investigate it herself and then act, then communicate with her siblings about it. Into this calm of meditation comes Suma. she comes into the throne room and she calls her siblings, and the two sisters, because their brother is the king, the two sisters cannot sit in the presence of the king, and that's just fine with Sumi because she's ascetic anyway. But Suma feels more comfortable kneeling on a cushion. And the other thing is, the sisters can never give their back to their brother. Like when they're speaking to him, they never, and then they leave. They never turn and leave. So they never give their back to him, and also they never can sit ahead of him. So Suma, the enforcer goddess, would be kneeling here. Suma, the enforcer goddess, she's come into the throne room, and she tells them what happened. She tells them what the humans did, and Sumo is probably upset because his peace has been disturbed, and Sumi, the arbiter, is taking all of this in, and she's trying to assess her brother's reactions, and this whole time she's remembering that she just learned that something horrible has probably happened. The horrible thing that she doesn't know what it is, and she has a feeling that it has something to do with her sister Suma's conflict with the humans. And so Suma demands that they consider that, and that Sumo finally make the judgment after Sumi has studied the law, that not the judgment, but gives the order that allows her to exterminate the humans. And Sumo of course, always quiet. He wears a mask. We can't see his facial expressions. Always symmetrical and direct. Is showing no response and not letting any communication come from his posture or his behavior. But when his sister demands the extermination of the humans, it sets something off in him. And it's not exactly that's what's bothering me. It's not that the humans are bothering him. It's just that he's been missing something. He's mistaken in believing that he has to be dead to find complete meaning in his being. And that he's trying to be something that he can't be. And so when his sister says exterminate the humans, whether there's any point to that or not is not really the issue. It's that the humans are alive, and all of a sudden he understands that's what he's been missing, is the life part of it. And their being is analogous to to the humans having life, and the plants having life, and the animals having life, and this green planet having a super ecosystem, and all these smaller ecosystems that are full of the physical side of the spiritual completeness and wholeness that the ancestors have. And he can't have what the ancestors have because he's still physical. And so he refuses, he gestures to her that this can't be. That would go completely against the laws, even though it's not written that the humans can develop language, and that the assumption has always been that the humans cannot develop language because then they would be able to communicate with each other like the gods communicate with each other. And so he communicates to Sumi, to the arbiter, that she's going to have to examine the laws. He pulls a document out of the air and shows it to his sister and said, "Here, I think this is where you might find the answer." And he gives it to Sumi and says, "This meeting is over and you're going to have to wait for the arbiter's judgment." The arbiter acknowledges her brother's order and signals the end of the meeting. And of course she pays respect to her sister, and her sister is Suma is fit to be tied. I'm sure that she would never hit her brother with a lightning rod, but that's probably what she would like to do. She gets up and goes through the motions of being respectful to him, being respectful to her sister, and backs away and leaves. And now it will be up to Suma to read the document that her brother has given her, and to study the document and do the research and define the codes. This is a very difficult, complicated document, and so she's going to have to study it for a while. If this was a Christian mythology, I think that Sumo would be considered saintly, or perhaps like the Buddha, or a holy man, a person who's completely given himself over to enlightenment and being at one with the universe. And he stays in the room continuing to meditate. After the meeting of the siblings in the throne room, in which Suma requests to exterminate the humans, her brother turns her down, and Sumi has had this premonition that she thinks is related to her sister's conflict with the humans, and Sumo realizes, as in reaction to Sumo's conflict with the humans and her passionate hatred of them and desire to just eliminate them, to exterminate them. And Sumo has this epiphany around that. The siblings go back to what they normally do, only they're all doing what they normally do more intensely. Sumi moves into the library, and I've already done a sketch of that scene. I've already shown the pregnancy that results from Sumo's epiphany around the humans, about life, and his becoming more invested in the physical world and trying to reach connection with the universe that way, instead of trying to have the kind of connection that only the dead can have. While Sumi is in the library and Sumo is nurturing this pregnancy, meditating, but also nurturing his pregnancy, Sumi is doing, her normal, flying over the firmament. She's been told to stay away from the humans, and so she does, but not without threatening them from a distance every once in a while, so they know that she's still watching them and that she's still really angry. And periodically, she's bugging her sister in the library, while her sister, tries to make a judgment that Sumo can base a final order on about the humans. And because she doesn't know that her brother is pregnant, neither of them realize that he's pregnant until it's pretty obvious. And her sister, of course, is the one who finds out, who discovers it first, and then summons her to the throne room so they can have a meeting about the pregnancy. And we don't see this. This happens off camera. During Suma's unpleasant encounter with the humans, she mortally wounded one of them, and she tried to bring it back to life because she knew she would get in trouble, but there's nothing she could do. She doesn't have the kind of powers that her siblings have. She's a protector. She's like a soldier. She's not spiritual. She doesn't have scientific knowledge or even very much intuition. Sumo, he senses that a human has been killed by one of the gods. Of course, he knows who it is. And unbeknownst to his sister, he leaves his meditation to go look for this dead human. And he finds the human, and the human is dead, and there's nothing he can do about it. He decides not to use his life and death powers, which he can use sometimes, and the human is close enough to having been alive that he could probably repair it to a certain extent, but it would be like a zombie if he did that. And since he has accepted the sentience and the inevitable intellectual evolution of the humans, he honors it as best he can and wraps it like he would wrap one of his own. And he takes it into his bosom as a sort of talisman to help him connect better to his physicality and become more integrated. And it occurs to him that though he doesn't have the power to return this little human to its former state, he does have the power to give life to something else, and he decides to do that, to honor the life of the humans by making himself pregnant, which he can do because he has divine powers, to make himself pregnant like a human and give birth like a human, and his child will be the ultimate merging of the physical and the spiritual. So it will be like a new sort of a new species. And he should consult at least with Sumi about that, but he decides that he's not going to, because he does have veto power over his sisters, because he's the king, he's the head of the Trinity. And so the next part of the story, while Sumi is making her decision about exterminating the humans, and Sumo's pregnancy is discovered, will be, well, what are we going to do about the pregnancy?